Trump's killer campaign gets full-blown racist.
Kung flu.
As coronavirus cases hit record numbers, the EU blocks US travel, and the Lorax gives us all the dirt on Trump, but we still think he's an asshole. All this and more, today in Old News. When last we left you, impeached president and Flock of Seagulls cover singer Donald Trump was about to have a rally.
We expect to have, it's like a record-setting crowd. We've never had an empty seat.
Indoor transmission is much more likely than outdoors.
And we certainly won't in Oklahoma.
That is a super spreader event.
Over 1 million people have requested tickets to come to this event.
Turns out people don't want to die. In fact, in America especially, they don't even want to get sick. Even Trump fans have stayed away out of basic human self-preservation. They kind of know he's sending them to play with the kid with the chicken pox. But what was that part about 1 million tickets reserved?
Over 1 million people have requested tickets.
Oh my god, I just registered for Trump's rally, and I'm so excited to not go.
Turns out K-pop fans and TikTok users were responsible for the high expectations by reserving tickets en masse to an event you couldn't pay them to actually attend.
You have millions of kids who are bored and they're up to some mischief on their phones and directing it at Donald Trump.
This caused the venue, which holds less than 20,000 people, to build an outdoor overflow area to handle the sellout crowd.
It didn't necessarily keep people out from going, but it made the numbers seem so big compared to what the actual show up was that it kind of was a success.
I love Generation Z. And not just in a gross way. He claimed the venue was blocked by protesters, which it wasn't. But it gave him another excuse to call the protesters thugs, which is totally his N-word. He then spent 10 full minutes explaining why he couldn't walk down a ramp like a person with legs, and that he can actually drink water. Which brings us to our follow-up on the newest scandal, Watergate.
I see we have a little glass of water. Where the hell did this water come from?
It's mystery water.
Where did it come from?
Where did it come from? It appears he didn't actually drink it. Why does he have to be a dick about it? What is he, Thor?
Another!
Wait, is he Thor? Probably not, but we'll keep you informed on the Watergate scandal as developments develop. He moved on to say we needed to slow down testing.
When you do testing to that extent, you're going to find more people, you're going to find more cases. So I said to my people, slow the testing down, please.
Don't worry, his trusty press secretary cleared everything up.
It was a comment that he made in jest.
Were you just kidding, or do you have a plan to slow down testing?
I don't kid. Let me just tell you, let me make it clear.
His poor damage control team. And he couldn't leave the stage without being a complete racist asshole.
Has more names than any disease in history. I can name Kung flu.
He's called it the China flu, the Wuhan flu, but not yet the Kung flu, which is the racist term that racists have been using since the start of the pandemic. All of this to a crowd of 6,000 people. And when you subtract campaign members, White House employees, security, and the 2,837 paid gig actors, the real number is closer to 1,500. Yes, the disgraced president's triumphant return to the stage was a total clusterfuck. The coronavirus is in the middle of a second peak in the United States. We wanted to name this segment Coronavirus 2, Electric Boogaloo. You know that old joke that everybody uses, that old chestnut? Well, that old chestnut has been cracked wide open by the squirrel of racism. A group of far-right radicals have grown in popularity over the last couple of years called the Boogaloo Boys, tugging their name from the same tired joke based on the 1980s dance film Breakin' 2, Electric Boogaloo. Only they're calling it Civil War 2, Electric Boogaloo, in hopes of creating a second civil war in the United States, allowing the South to finally secede from the Union.
The Boogaloo Boys is an anti-government group with ties to white supremacists.
Members of this movement can be identified by the Hawaiian shirts they always wear. That's right, along with tiki parties, the beloved Breakin' franchise will be forever tainted by white supremacist gun-toting war enthusiasts in Hawaiian shirts. We could make this shit up, but why would we? The other reason we can't call it Coronavirus 2 is we never finished our first wave. We had a little dip when people still gave a shit, but we never even came close to getting it under control. 32 states are now on the rise. Florida saw 9,000 new cases yesterday. And Houston is now an epicenter. Many states have halted their reopening plans. Yet a lot of people in the hardest hit states still refuse to cover their mouths in public. Because of its comically bad response to the pandemic, the European Union plans to ban U.S. travelers indefinitely, meaning they don't have any plans to let Americans back into Europe. I'm sure they're all very upset. Because while Europe is in recovery mode, in various phases of planned reopening, the United States just saw its highest number of infections in a single day, with almost 46,000 positive cases recorded.
Half of the states are still in the first wave and heading up. That is not the EU's fault. I think that's the fault of management by the White House.
Every president has had their defining tragedy moment. Trump took his defining moment and urinated on it in a hotel room. As we claim our place in history by winning the Darwin Award's grand prize, the Typhoid Trump Risky Rally rolls along to a state with a lot more cases of the coronavirus, one of the fastest rising, hardest hit parts of the nation, Arizona.
Our numbers of hospitalized patients requiring oxygen, as well as those who are requiring life support, is rising.
The state reported 3,591 new cases the day of the rally, doubling its daily case count from last week.
Those are exactly the conditions that we identified early on in the pandemic that promote the spread of the pandemic.
We've installed these units, and it kills 99.9% of COVID within 10 minutes.
If you can't trust a church, who can you trust?
Some people are worried about being in a confined space with a lot of people right now because of coronavirus. Do you have any worries at all?
Those people should have been worried when they were doing the riots, and nobody seemed to worry then.
That's not what he asked. This time he held it in a megachurch, because of course he did. There were no temperature checks for the estimated 3,000 cheering and shouting and coughing attendees, who ignored a public health plea from the mayor and a new local ordinance requiring them to wear masks. And of course, once again, he couldn't leave without being a super racist asshole.
There's never been anything where they have so many names. I could give you 19 or 20 names.
Saying the same racist joke as before.
There's Wuhan. Wuhan was catching on.
Like it's part of his xenophobic Type 5 for comedy night at the Klan meeting. Yes, he's trying to win the title of Ku Klux Clown.
Coronavirus, right?
Listen to them salivating for him to say.
Kung flu, yeah.
Holy shit, they just can't.
Kung flu.
Remember when they compared Obama to Hitler? The reason they're so excited is because they know it's bad. Which brings us to our ongoing segment, Who Knew? If the leader of a country calls it Kung Flu, people will be racist towards Asians.
Okay.
Who knew?
Oh.
He yelled at me on the train and said, "You people brought this virus here."
The Chinese virus.
You dirty Chinese. And he just kept saying that over and over again.
The fight against the Chinese virus.
His doing that sends a cold chill throughout the Asian American community.
Get out of our country!
Why do you keep using this? A lot of people say it's racist.
It's not racist at all, no, not at all. It comes from China.
If you're from China, I need to know.
Why does he use racist phrases like the Kung Flu?
The president doesn't.
Kung Flu!
This was the first time that I've ever felt I was being treated differently for being Asian.
Not only is it horrible for the Asian community, but if the most powerful man in the country says it's okay to be racist, it opens a super shitty floodgate.
The United Arab Emirates has warned its citizens traveling in the U.S. to avoid wearing traditional clothing.
It's almost like it was dormant and then it came out when Trump made it like the norm.
You just think it's your property because you're Mexican.
There are white nationalist groups that when they hear him speak this way, they think it's a wink.
Samuel Clemens is getting blowback from his tell-all book about the poo-throwing monkey coop that is the Trump White House. He's being grilled on why he wouldn't testify at Trump's impeachment trial, and instead waited until he could make money off of a book deal to divulge his poorly written insider perspective.
To the length and degree that he indicts Donald Trump, he also indicts himself for cowardice and for greed.
While many think the former advisor and every old guy in a Disney cartoon is just a greedy, opportunistic, capitalist piece of shit, that's not the case. We have the inside scoop. You see, he really did it so he could give the money to his nephew Charlie Bucket, so they can invest in his Kentucky-based fried chicken restaurant, along with his hobby of making puppets that come to life, but can't tell lies before he dies of diabetes. He looks ridiculous.
And in other news, Canadian school children will now be learning computer coding and financial literacy starting in the 1st grade. They're teaching them how to work with machines, and the same stuff rich kids learn. It's almost like they want them to succeed. Weird. Speaking of weird, weird-flavored ice cream brand Ben & Jerry's joined a growing list of companies that are boycotting Facebook because of their allowance of hate speech on their site.
The advertisers are conflicted when it comes to how they see Facebook's stance on hate speech.
Good job, Ben & Jerry. Your disgusting ice cream is delicious. Yes, it's somehow both. And finally, Florida had less shark attacks this summer. The summer while everyone's staying inside. Who knew, am I right? 2 so far this year. Hope those sharks don't get the virus.
And as you know, television goes off the air this time every night. Join us again tomorrow morning for Howdy Doody.
I'm so excited I can barely control myself.